Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
It's time for today's Lucky Land horoscope with Victoria Cash.
Life's gotten mundane, so shake up the daily routine and be adventurous with a trip to Lucky Land. You know what they say, your chance to win starts with a spin. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com to play over 100 social casino-style games for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
Available to players in the U.S., excluding Washington and Michigan. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, this is Andrew Staton at World of Martial Arts TV. Today we have the honourable guest of Lak Loi, a JKD instructor from London. And the situation is we're finding his journey and all sorts of things about his JKD journey as well. But first of all, as I say, what I want to do is say hi to Lak. How did you get into martial arts?
Thanks for having me on your podcast, first and foremost. And I hope we can add some value to your listeners. So your first question, how did I first get into Jeet Kune Do?
No, that's another question. How did you get into martial arts?
How did I get into martial arts? As a child, as a very young child, me and my brother's like 13 months younger than me. We used to play fight quite a lot. And my dad, he brought us up on Bruce Lee movies. And he realized a secret, and this was that if he put a Bruce Lee movie on, both of us particularly mesmerized, and probably that's the reason why there was no fighting, because it's probably me starting. Who knows? But sit quietly, and especially when what he didn't factor into account was we would then try and mimic what Bruce of literally spoon feeding us on Bruce Lee movies. So I think I was hooked from a very, very young age. The father of us having so much energy, being hyperactive, he enrolled us in the local Shotokan Karate classes. Did that 4 years. And that's where the martial journey we started from.
Lak, what did you do after 4 years of Shotokan?
Oh, nothing for a very long time in the martial arts space, to be honest. And not up until I was 29 after that. So yeah, a very long break from martial arts after that. Really kind of dived into football at that time. Football was really kind of my first sport, and played a lot of football up until about 18, and then it was kind of more sporadic after that once I went to university. So yeah, not a lot on the martial arts space up until 29, so quite later on. So.
And what was that when you were 29? What did you go into?
Well, I went into Jeet Kune Do when I was 29, and it's a funny story how I got into that, because I wasn't actually interested in getting into martial arts at that time, and as you'd say, I had a bit of a calling. My wife was 6 months pregnant with our first child, and I woke up one morning and I had this vision. And this vision was a very clear message. I remember saying to my wife, I need to learn Bruce Lee's martial art, and I've been told that I'm going to help people, and it's going to help me as well, both personally and professionally. And it was vivid as day, and she was kind of bemused. She was like, we're gonna have a baby in 3 months, and you want to start taking up martial arts, and you know, at this time, you know, kind of, she didn't say what's wrong with you, but it's kind of, I felt like, you know, she was saying that, but she didn't. And I said, well, look, I've never really had this kind of feeling, and I really feel it's a calling that I have to do something. I have to act on this. I don't know why, but I've been told that I need to do this because it's going to help me and it's going to help other people, both personally and professionally. And I said, look, if you don't want me to do it, that's fine. I get it. But I'm not going to do it without your blessing. And she said, look, well, you know, if you've had a calling, then you need to follow it. And that's where the search started. And that search was an interesting one in its own right.
So the journey must have been, how did you find your first JKD school?
Well, I was working New York at the time in Manhattan, and I used to work for a fintech company. We used to provide trading systems to all the tier one investment banks, brokerages, and things like that. That was schools. Google was quite young then. There was nothing on Google. There were search engines like Lycos and like Netscape that were kind of the more popular ones, and still there wasn't a lot of intel on those. So don't know there's a martial art that exists in Bruce Lee's name. Don't know that. I don't know there's a name for this martial art, and I don't know where to go for this. So I end up going to the Wushu temple, and it didn't feel right to me. There was nothing against the actual art itself. It just wasn't what I think I was meant to do, and so I got invited to consult in a investment banking company based in Midtown. I was a member of a New York Health and Racquet Club, all these clubs spotted all over Manhattan, and I went to the local one. And as I say, it's fate. I walked past the studio, and in the corner of my eye, I saw a poster saying "Learn Bruce Lee's martial art, Jeet Kune Do." And that's the first time, you know, I snapped my neck back, looked at the sign, and that's the first time I realized, wow, there is a martial art in Bruce's name, and it's called Jeet Kune Do, and I need to sign up. So it was, I signed up pretty much as quickly as I could, and the rest is history, as they say.
Well, it's not history. Who did you train with?
That school was affiliated with Ted Wong, Bruce Lee's sparring partner. So it's a New York Martial Arts Academy, NYMMA. That's still there. It's now affiliated with Chris Kent, following Ted Wong's passing. Bless him. And so yeah, they're now, you know, affiliated with Chris Kent now. And so I was very lucky to fall into a pure lineage in Bruce Lee's martial art. You know, I didn't know a single name in the Bruce Lee's martial art community. His first generation students, first generation instructors. I didn't know any of them. I didn't know who they were. Somebody could have said a name and it would have gone straight over my head. So all I can say is something was looking down on me that I fell into the right place at the right time, and that was guided by, you know, the masters within that space.
Do we have a name that we can portray? Who was the person that was teaching there?
I think the gentleman's name now, if off the top of my head, was a guy called Derek. The gym is run by a gentleman called Dino. And Dino was an instructor under Ted Wong, and Dino, one of Dino's instructors that ran 2 classes in Manhattan on a Monday and a Thursday. And the gentleman that I trained with was one of his instructors called Frankie. And I've tried to look him up, you know, since moving back to the UK, and I can't find him. But this guy was young, quite skinny, but he could pack a punch. And I remember the first time I hit a focus pad, I just thought, what? You know, I was blown away. This young, skinny lad could really leather that focus pad. And I just didn't know how he did it. I was hooked. I was hooked straight away. And on top of that, it's interesting because sometimes I think he was a figment of my imagination, because this guy came into my life and then I had to move back and he just vanished. But he used to always say, you know, I want to be a, you know, a professional speaker, personal development coach. I really want to help people. And at that time, it didn't really kind of register with me that would be my pathway as well later on in life. And it was almost like he was sowing the seed in that this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. And then poof, he just vanished. Well, I vanished. I came back to the UK and lost contact with him. And I've not been able to reconnect with him since. But Frankie left a lasting impression on me, and he was so inspirational that my start in Jeet Kune Do was one of inspiring. Or I really loved it. It was fantastic, and it's that's what I've tried to carry through ever since. And I didn't even realize it was him that sowed that seed right at the beginning.
Yeah. Where does Sifu Tim Tackett fit into the picture?
So I came back a year later. So I trained with New York Martial Arts Academy for a year. Then I came back to the UK because our firstborn was born then. We didn't really want to bring her up in New York. And when we came back, just before I came back, I was looking up online to see if there are any Jeet Kune Do schools in the UK where I was moving to. And I decided I'll move back to my, my home village, or hometown, should I say, which is up in Leicester, the Midlands. And 3 months before I moved, I found Urban Martial Arts run by Kotlin Wan. Now, that school wasn't open at that time. It was about to open. And luckily for me, there was some information online. So I actually called him and had a conversation with him before I actually moved back. And he said, yeah, we're going to start up. We're going to teach Jeet Kune Do. And he was affiliated with Lamar Davis at the time. And Lamar Davis, is one of those rare gems that has trained with loads of the first generation students himself out of his own time and effort, energy, and really got a wealth of experience in that space. So we were training under Sifu Lamar Davis initially, and then I trained in Leicester for about 3-4 years, and then eventually I ended up back in London, which is where most of my my professional services are in the daytime. And I ended up back in the banking world, and I got a call from my instructor Sifu Kotlin Wan, and he said, look, we've got a gentleman coming up. He's over from the States. His name's Tim Tackett. He was supposed to do a seminar for a gentleman down in Southampton who couldn't get enough numbers in order to make up their seminar. And so he was kind of in a bit of a bind. So he'd called around other JKD schools in the UK, and he called Kotlin, and Kotlin's like, yeah, bring him up here. And I went up and did it was an evening. I think it was like a Wednesday or a Thursday evening, midweek evening seminar, and did that. And that's where when Sifu Tim Tackett recognizes, and he thought, well, I want these two lads to represent me, and that's where the journey started.
Yeah. Just to go off tangent one more time, and then that's it. We'll go back to the thing. What do you feel Jeet Kune Do has to offer everybody? Just in the martial arts sense, what is it that makes it slightly different, or slightly better, or slightly just for certain people? What do you think the essence of Jeet Kune Do is?
Firstly, I think all martial arts offer some gold in some way, shape, or form. This value we take from all martial arts, but all martial arts have a different hypothesis. So some martial arts are, used for display. Some are used for sports, and some are used for street fighting. Street fighting, when you or loved one is put in harm's way, how can you incapacitate your opponent as quickly as possible using reasonable force? If somebody's unarmed and posing a threat, you can incapacitate them using least amount of force, just restrain them potentially. But if somebody's out to kill you or a loved one, then you got to do what it takes. And Bruce's philosophy was, take out your opponent in 15 seconds or less. And ultimately, the first and foremost reason for martial arts in a combative manner, in as you said, a pure martial arts sense, is from a combative perspective, is self-preservation and preservation of your loved ones.
Your martial arts journey has led you on to teaching mental and spiritual cultivation. How did this happen?
Well, I personally went into martial arts with this calling, right? So I didn't know any better, was none the wiser. And I thought I was going into martial arts because I was a real avid gym goer, and I still am. And so I thought it was, to cultivate physically, to be fast and powerful and be able to kick and punch, efficiently, to be able to defend yourself and look after yourself and your family members and your friends. But throughout that journey, I took a very keen interest in Bruce's writings. And one of the writings that he'd written was his chief definite aim, or definite chief aim. Now, I thought that was an interesting piece of writing because it was a mantra essentially that prophesied what he was going to become. And as a consequence, I felt that he had realized that even after his passing. In fact, he'd realized it after he'd passed, and that there was a huge amount of power and potential in those words that he'd written. And I started to look into it, and I realized it was inspired by Dr. Napoleon Hill. Now, Dr. Napoleon Hill is renowned as the godfather of personal development in the US. And he trained with the likes of Dale Carnegie back in the day. So he had some amazing mentors, amazing idols that he worked with. And in that space, he was a person that wrote the world's best-selling personal development book called Think and Grow Rich. And I had to get my hands on a copy of that. And as I read that, I started realizing Think and Grow Rich was about mindset, and that I had to apply myself in that way, because that was not taught in any of the Jeet Kune Do schools that I'd been part of, and none of the teachers taught any of the mindset part of Bruce's teachings. And I thought, well, if Bruce was big into this, and this forms a big part of what we're doing, then we're missing a massive trick. You've got your physical element, you've got your mental element, you've got your spiritual element, well, we could even break it down further. You got your body, your mind, emotion, and your spirit. So if you're looking at the 4 aspects and you're only focusing on the physical, you're missing 3/4 of your being. So I started to delve into the mental cultivation aspect and started to make loads of connections with the physical and the mental. And then started to realize that everything that we're doing in terms of movement is there to help us cultivate and move the mind. So if we move badly, our mind's going to operate badly. But if we move well, our mind's going to operate well. And I started to make these connections. And having gone through my own process of kind of self-mastery, I started to apply this on myself and use it in my own way. And I found it to be very therapeutic, healing, and transformative. And I realized that this was something that was teachable using martial arts and martial arts movement. And that's how the martial mind power aspect of it was born, where we use the mind, use your mind and the power within that and the martial mindset to really transform your being. So it's this transformational process using martial arts movement. It moves the body, it moves the mind, and it moves the spirit. And it was only till later that I got into the spiritual aspect, which was an unknown. There was a time when the mind was unknown, the physical was, just accessible, just kind of getting to grips with that. Once I'd kind of got a grasp on that, then moved on to the mind, and then the mind ended up moving me to the spiritual element, because I realized the mind was a gateway between the body and the spirit.
Explaining that, I can see this, that you've been a pioneer in applying Bruce Lee's martial art and philosophy, and having written several books. Can you describe what they're about?
Absolutely. So I've authored 4 books up to now. The first one is called Master Your Life, and it's a 9-step Nine Steps to Self-Mastery, and it's inspired by Bruce Lee. So through my own process of cultivating self-mastery, I realized there were certain stages that you needed to go through in order to ascend that process. And so that's what that book covers, and it uses Bruce Lee's principles and philosophies. If I may, I reverse engineered a lot of the philosophies and principles that we use in Jeet Kune Do so that we can apply it to our life, and really got down to the science and the core of why those aspects of training work. I really talk about the science behind it as well. So we evidence it with science so that it's becomes a bone, so you know that is something that works, is something that's the scientific community has proven, and you can then apply it in your own way, and then using martial movement as a consequence. The second book is a book called The Art of Thinking Without Thinking. Now, this is a book about self-actualization. Now, what is self-actualization? Now, Bruce talked a lot about self-actualization, and it's really about discovering who you really are. You know, we've all got this innate soul spirit, and that has an identity, it has an essence, and we're really in this world to discover that. And self-actualization, or alternative, another word Bruce uses quite often, is self-realization, is to realize your true self, as in who are you in spirit. And therefore, what that helps you understand is, what are you here to serve as? In what capacity are you here to serve others in? And once you realize that, then you can act in that highest capacity. So that book is actually a book of following my own spiritual quest and my own spiritual awakening, and my own spiritual experiences. And I wanted to share those insights that I gained with others in a playful way. So I use koans, Zen koans, to help the reader be playful in using. And the way to tap into these koans is not to think. Just when you read a koan, the idea is Zen priest will give you a koan, and when you read it, there will be the spiritual experience that happens inside you. And when it happens inside you, the idea is for you to become aware and acknowledge that experience, and therein lies the answer. So to do that, to have that awareness and that spiritual sensitivity or acuity about the feelings that are happening inside you, that experience that happens inside you, you have to be completely relaxed and thoughtless. In other words, the art of thinking without thinking. So you're not thinking. Whatever thoughts are given to you are given to, and experiences are given to you that are working through you, it's through that experience that I want you to tap into, and that's what the Zen koans are trying to do. And so I used that book as a way to playfully engage and help others experience it for themselves. The third book was Original Truth, and this is a book about living the martial way. And it's a book that that both yourself and Will have been very instrumental in. It started off, as you're well aware, as a series of articles in the Woma magazine, and later on we expanded that into a book which had more expansive chapters for each of those. Plus, there was a hidden chapter which we didn't publish, which was on the game of death, and where we talked about the topic of what happens after. And so there's 13 chapters, even though we actually published 12. So there's a hidden gem in there. And then the last one, which is called "I Hate My Effing Job," is a book about corporate well-being and motivational leadership. And it is interesting because it uses martial arts principles and philosophies. But it's interesting how, when I had that calling initially, 3 months before my firstborn was about to arrive, where I had this calling saying, you need to learn this because it's going to help you and it's going to help other people in a personal and professional capacity. Well, here it is. It arrived, and it arrived in a way in which ultimately I'm helping people to find joy in their jobs. I help them transform their hatred for some experience, unresourceful experience that they're having in their job or their work experience, into one that they do love. And it's written in such a way that it's written to address employers, or that could include managers and leaders and things like that, and also employees. So it is for both. And ultimately, I think really it's a book about using martial mindset, but in a corporate setting, right?
You've done these 4 books, Lak, and they look terrific. And thanks for giving us the sort of like the accolade of helping you out with the 3rd book. But now, how can people access this resource? Is it just books, or is there anything else as well?
We've got books, so they're all on Amazon, so you can have a look at on Amazon. We've got a bunch of other resources. We've got something called a digital dojo. So we've got resources online. It's like a learning hub. People can join that, and we've got the self-mastery course video series on there, meditations, martial arts, community forum, a whole bunch of fitness work on there. So that's quite extensive. There's a whole bunch of stuff on there. So you just go to martialmindpower.com if you want to access that. And then we've got classes, and we do workshops and experiences. And then the last bit is applying it into the corporate environment.
I can see from your first 3 books, embody martial arts and philosophy. How does the corporate well-being book embody martial arts and philosophy?
It's a good question, and the answer to that is quite simple. The corporate well-being, the corporate well-being book is just about justice. All right, it's justice to be done to the employees and employers, and to create a harmonious environment. So really, martial arts, if anything, is about being a justice warrior. And I think when we use the word warrior, we got to be careful that we're not overly aggressive, and that actually we do things with love, kindness, and compassion. So what we're trying to do here, the teaching behind this is something called Sant Sipahi. It's a Sikh teaching, actually, which means Santa means saint and Sipahi means soldier. And the Sant Sipahi means we're all a saint and a soldier. So there's times where we have to be saintly, we're silent, we're listening carefully, we're being attentive, we're being aware. And but sometimes that silence can be misconstrued as the weakness, and people tend to walk all over you. Now, that's when the Sipahi, the soldier, stands up and he says, no, you can't walk all over me, right? Just because I'm silent, don't take that for weakness, because you'll wake up the lion within. And so the soldier stands, and the soldier is the one that says, no, you can't treat other people like that. You can't treat me like that. And you want to do things the right way. I understand that, you can't always do things the right way, because sometimes you might have to not deliver everything, but deliver part of everything, because you don't have the right time, you don't have the resources, and so on. But ultimately, you want to do things the right way, and do it with integrity and honor. It's very hard to do that, because once you start to slip on those 2 pillars of integrity and honor, it's a slippery slope to self-dishonesty. And Bruce was a big advocate for honestly express yourself, and he said, honestly express yourself. Easy for me to just stand there and put on a show, be cocky and all this, that, and the other. But it's very difficult for me to be honest with myself. And it's only when you're honest with yourself can you be honest with others. So, what we're trying to do here in this space is educate, inspire, and empower employers and employees alike, so that really they're teaching in the highest power. And that highest power is actually love. And Danny Inosanto, who was one of Bruce Lee's confidants and closest friends, and he ran his LA Chinatown school, he wrote, and I'd like to read this quote because I think it's really powerful, and I hope this puts things into context for martial artists and people that are using the martial mindset in their personal and professional lives. And he said this. He said, love is the highest art. In ancient times, you trained so hard not for the sake of killing people, but for the love of your family, for the love of your mother, your father, your children, your tribe, and your body. It is the love of life. That is why we train so hard, so you can preserve life. And that's really what we're trying to do here, is preserve people's lives in all aspects of their being. You know, martial arts isn't just for the dojo, and it isn't just for your personal life. It's also for your professional life in all aspects. How many different ways do you represent yourself and express yourself outwardly? You know, when you know you might be a brother, a son, a father, a grandfather, a friend, a work colleague, you know, a guide, a confidante. So many different roles we play for different people. And I remember my daughter gave me a Father's Day present one time, and it said, you know, for some people you might for some people, you know, you might be just one person in the world, but for me, you are the world to me. You know, you are the one person that means the world to me. And when you're wearing all of these different roles or expressing yourself in all of these different roles, if you're doing it with kindness, compassion, and love, and you're doing it from a higher place, which if you're operating from a place of love is the highest place, then you can have that effect. You can be the world to someone, not that you want to be the world to someone, but because you're there for them in that capacity. And they will also, you can also make them feel like they are the world. They are the most important thing, especially people that are suffering from mental health and anxiety. I mean, that's a big problem within the corporate world at the moment. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a coarse throat. And 95% of my students in my martial arts school come in because they've got a mental health issue. The other 5% come in because they want to entertain themselves with fitness and some activity that occupy their time. 95% of them are coming in because they've got a underlying mental health condition. And usually it presents itself as, I'm overweight. But what that means is I've got self-confidence issues. I've got self-esteem issues. Or I've got anxiety issues. Yeah, I've got anxiety. What that means is there's something that's causing your self-confidence to be lacking, right? And these trends and all the different various ways that this presents itself, it repeats again and again and again. Bullying. Loads of adults that attend martial arts have been bullied when they were young kids in school.
Yeah.
And it stuck with them all this time. And here they are in the martial arts
Absolutely.
trying to heal from that underlying trauma that they might have forgotten or not recognized. It's amazing.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
So that's what this work's all about.
We've done interviews with other people, and that has come through an awful lot. Just a couple of more questions. You also founded MMP Talks. What is that, and how does it work?
So MMP Talks, Martial Mindpower Talks, it's a talks platform. It's a TED Talk style talk platform. People come in and do 20-minute talks. And what we do is we invite, or people nominate themselves or other people that are masters in their field. Now, what does that mean? We are trying to spread self-mastery that's inspired by martial arts. So our core mission is to help raise the awareness that martial arts is more than kicking and punching, and that it's a really powerful conduit to help cultivate self-mastery, so body, mind, emotion, spirit, so that one can be the best they can be, to raise human consciousness, be the best they can be, and to make the world a better place to live in, one person at a time. So we have speakers that come in and they'll do a talk on their specific subject. And it's amazing, actually, the speakers themselves, you know, because they might have practiced martial arts, and maybe a small teaching in martial arts had made a big difference in their life. It's completely transformed their being. And all of a sudden, they are now at the height of their specialty, whatever that might be. And they're putting themselves out into the world, and they are an aspirational and inspirational individual. And as a consequence, we're trying to help these speakers to bring that out of them and say, look, can you share the life lesson that martial arts taught you that helped transform your life and get you where you are now, so other people can also benefit from that?
I'm going to take you off a little bit off your comfort zone for a minute before we wind up. My passion, of course, is the art and philosophy of Bruce Lee. And so basically I take to some things that have not really sort of like stood on very often, but you might be able to enlighten me a little bit. One of Bruce's real passion projects was the silent flute. And I was always told that him and James Coburn did an awful things called Sufi tales and things like that. And basically within the script, there is an awful lot of that. Have you ever looked at the silent flute, and where do you feel Bruce was going with that? Because he was looking at this philosophical art that you're looking at, and I'm always looking at, and he was trying to put that onto celluloid, and try and, even through a fantasy sort of like picture, bring out a man's journey, which is what we're talking about with people like yourself. So what do you feel about silent flute and the things that are in there that are maybe have seen as Sufi tales?
So the silent flute, in my humble opinion, is Bruce's attempt to tap in to the spiritual aspects of martial arts. And he's approaching that through the Sufi angle. Now, Sufis, or the swirling dervishes as well, or part of the Sufism movement, is a beautiful movement, a highly spiritualist community of people that try and cultivate spirituality, and that means really connect to the high self-realization, which we talked about earlier, through their practice of Sufi philosophy, applying that philosophy into daily life, the way they live, the way they think, the way they talk, the way they act. All of that is kind of an expression and embodiment of that philosophy. And I think that was Bruce's magna opus piece of work in that sphere. And I think he's trying to get across something that is really subtle, right, in a very artistic way. And obviously it was done after Bruce had died, so it was a take of the producers of the team that took that on after that. But had Bruce been here to actually direct and drive that project, I think it would have even been more impactful than what it already is. And what it already is highly impactful, but you have to have that one, a very open mind to watch it, because it's not Bruce's typical fanfare, big screen entertainment movie. It's very subtle, it's very artistic, it's beautifully put together, and it's touching on very subtle topics. And these subtle topics are so subtle, but they have an everlasting impact on a being. And I absolutely love that movie. I wish Bruce was in it, and I wish Bruce was part of that process. But I know that, you know, from reading some of the books by Matthew Polly, and the later one by John Little, where he alludes to it a little bit. In particular, I think Matthew Polly alludes to it, that he spent a lot of time working on it, but then he got distracted by Enter the Dragon, and that took away a lot of his time, and it was a project that he always wanted to come back to. And I would say, if anybody really wants to understand Bruce and his mindset, there's two places they should go to. Number one is this book called Artist of Life. That really gives you a sense for what Bruce was thinking and how he was thinking and writing it down. And the second is Silent Flute, because the Silent Flute helps you understand where Bruce was intending to go at that time, and that was probably his highest piece of work.
I'm talking about where you're going. What's your next step, young Lak? Oh, I'm from a big drink of water.
Yeah, I've just come off a bit of a cold, so I'm a bit coughing and splitting a little bit. So apologies for all of that. What is my next move? I think the corporate world, being part of it, is really important to me. I've been in the corporate space about 30 years, over 30 years now. I've been lucky. When I was in the States, I was working on Wall Street, spent 5 years in a Wall Street firm. I spent the rest of the time in the city of London. And, you'd think that technology would make your life easier. And ultimately, that's what it's there for. But what it's done is it's made the pace of life faster and therefore the expectations greater. And with the kind of like the modern mindset, we all live in a fast food mentality. We want everything now. And it's the same in the corporate environment. So everybody wants everything now. There's more pressure on people within the workforce. And this is having a detrimental effect on people's mental health. And having gone through this whole process myself, and there's a reason why I'm in this space, and there's a reason why martial arts was given to me, and there's a reason I had that calling, there's a reason I've been compelled to write these books, is to help people, to help them really operate in a space of effortless ease and buoyancy in all walks of their life, in particular their work. If you're spending 2/3 of your day, or even a third of your day in the work, you spend a third of your day in a work environment, you spend a third of your day sleeping, and you spend the other third, hopefully, doing personal activities. But what's happening is that third of personal activities is getting consumed by work. So you're spending more than a third of your time working. And, at the end of the process, at the end of this journey we call life, we have to, if we are lucky enough not to get hit by a bus and go instantly, and we have the time to contemplate, what did I achieve in life? Did I actually do anything of value for others outside of myself? I want to confidently be able to answer that question and say, yes, I wrote books, I wrote programs, I put events together for other people to make their lives richer, not to make me rich. I don't want nothing from it, but it was my calling. It's the reason I'm here. It's my true self. And I'm putting myself in that position that I'm serving in that capacity. And that's what it's always been about. And I'll continue doing it until my last breath. And at that last breath, if I have the chance to answer that question, I'd like to look back and say, do you know what? I touch people's hearts, minds, spirits. And that's all what it was about. Nothing more, nothing else. It's not what cars, motorbikes, houses, and material things you've got, because they're all gonna fall. They're all gonna decay and deteriorate and rot away. What doesn't rot away is the imprint you leave on people's heart, mind, spirits, and that's what it's all about for me.
Leaving on a high, thank you so much for that. That's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But now, just on a lighter note, should we say, on these deeper things that we've been thinking about, what's the funniest thing a student has ever asked you?
A funny thing. I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of funny questions students ask you all the time. I think there's depends on the level of conscious maturity of a student. But the younger students in their spiritual maturity will ask questions like, "Oh, Sifu, what do you think is the best martial art? What would you think? What martial art do you think would win if you put this art against another art?" I mean, that was the hypothesis of UFC originally. And to be honest with you, so it's a very childish question, because it's ultimately about the individual. You can have, you could, if you think, RA is better than RB, but the practitioner A is weak, then, and B is fairly competent, B is probably going to do better than the person practicing the better art. So it doesn't make sense, right? So it's just a very immature question. Another question that I get asked quite often is, Sifu, when was the last time you've been in a fight? And And that's always an interesting one, because I know they're expecting me, to say, yeah, you messed up somebody because they did this, that, and the other, and they want that, that hero's story, But really, the answer to that is every day. And they mean, what do you mean every day? Well, you had a fight today. I'm like, yeah. I mean, like, isn't there in a battle you had today? There's some challenge you had to deal with today? Oh, my washing machine broke down yesterday. All right. So there's a challenge, I'm gonna now replace it. Right. So that's an inner battle, that you've got to deal with. It's a small battle, but anyway, you've got to deal with it. But then it could be something bigger. You got a challenge at work, a client's being difficult, and how are you gonna deal with that? Or you've got somebody that's creating animosity within your team, and you want to neutralize that so that you can create harmony and happiness within your team. So you need to become aware of that. So what is martial arts teaching us? It's teaching us, okay, how do we become aware of what's happening in and around us? In us, firstly, because if you're not in touch with yourself, you ain't going to be in touch with anything outside you. You're going to become chaotic inside and outside. So what's happening in and around you, and once you're aware of that, then you can take positive affirmative action. Bruce talked about think hit. In other words, if you need to hit something, you've got to do it now. Don't hesitate, no procrastination, just get on with it. And sometimes you've got to become really quick at observing, orienting, deciding, and acting as quickly as that, and that gives you that certainty, but without knee-jerk reactions. So that means when you're observing and you're orientating yourself and you're making a decision before you take affirmative action, you're actually taking a moment. You're taking a moment to process everything. Now, out in the real world, sometimes you've got more time to do these things. Sometimes you don't. In a combat situation, you haven't got much time to think about these things. Things are changing millisecond to millisecond. So as a consequence, you've got to be able to think really fast without conscious thought. It's all got to be unconscious. And we're trying to do that in a daily life. So every day is a battle. And it doesn't mean those battles are hard or easy. They just are what they are, and it's just challenges and things like that. My wife's going to have an operation on Friday, so I'm very calm and comfortable with that. But your average Joe that doesn't have self-mastery over themselves would be panicking and worrying and winding up their partner, because that's the last thing they need. What they need is calm and quietude, and assurance that it's going to be okay, because it's a mindset. And a friend of mine, one of my students actually yesterday said, a loved one has got cancer, and there was a study that was only published last week's in Apple News, and there was a study on how if you are negative, if you are in a negative state of mind, your body releases these like a mesh, and this mesh is there to kind of capture rogue cells, okay, and so it captures them and it destroys them. But if you've got cancer, what it does, it starts to coagulate and build up all these cancer cells, and then you start to develop lumps. And this study is the first study that's actually proven that when you're in a negative state of mind, how it actually exacerbates the buildup of cancer and the spreading of cancer. So again, the point was to my student that take this scientific article and ensure on the back of that you keep your loved one in a high spirits, keep them calm and relaxed, and that way she will reduce that buildup, and it will help them as they go through their medical therapy. And so these kind of things, is how do you apply it in every day, and it all boils down to when you're in a fight. When you're in a fight, you've got to be calm. You've got to be at this. You've got to be, in the eye of the storm. And in the eye of the storm, it's completely calm, but all the chaos is ensuing around you. And we've got to try and make sure that if there's something that's happening in our lives that starts to become like a bit of a storm, like a bit of a tornado. You're in the center of it, completely calm, see what's happening, and then make an informed decision. What is it that you need to do? And then to take affirmative action. So, these are the kind of questions that students ask, and they all kind of end up pointing back to self-mastery again, and how you can apply martial arts. So I know you didn't want a deep answer, but the reality of it is that everything is deep, but you've got to get so good at doing it that it becomes light, and it becomes effortless and easy, and buoyant. And those three words, I think, really is a crucial mantra in life, that once you learn these things, initially, it's conscious, and it takes work, and it takes a lot of thinking and practice, but eventually you've got to be effortless, easy, and buoyant. So then that translates to grace, and how you can move through life graciously. And the typical kind of perspective or image of a martial arts grandmaster or someone like that, someone at the height of their, it's somebody that's so graceful, that literally looks like they're floats, they talk easily, softly, and so on. And I think that's a beautiful aspirational place to be, but you can be that if you put the effort in. But you got to put the effort in. Self-investment. It's a huge self-investment process.
It sounds absolutely amazing. And you can see that I have been keeping very quiet because I've been attentive, and I have enjoyed every minute of it. Lak, thank you so much for your time. We'll most likely be coming back to you fairly soon. But at the moment, we wish you all the best with what you're doing, and we'll touch base with you soon. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I really appreciate your time and Will. And I hope that this podcast is going to give you some value to your listeners and viewers, and they can take something of importance today away and practice in their lives to help enrich it. So from my heart to yours, thank you so much.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from, with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.